those who are meeting for the first time, welcome. I know this is the first meet, and I'm sure this is not the last. And for those we have met before, I never knew we were going to meet. It's by Ashish's arrangement and his planning that why not have programs again. I heard many of you all were in India and we were traveling. Were you also in India?
I think we were at the
Both
same
of-
time.
We left at the same time. Okay. And were you also in India for a month?
For last couple of weeks.
Couple of months. So I also left for India, and then I was supposed to come soon, but then plans changed, and there were some devotees in Dubai who wanted some programs that side. So I almost had my ticket to Boston back on the 21st of December, I believe. And I get this call on 19th of December. And say, is it possible if you can come to Dubai? I said, tickets are booked to Boston. No, we'll cancel and we'll rebook it. I'm like, no problem. My only concern was money, but Krishna was merciful, and that just went to a different direction altogether. Once we went to Dubai, then to Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Muscat, all these places, and so many programs. As you know, it's all undercover there. You're not allowed to practice anything apart from Islam, and if you're caught, you're imprisoned. That's the starting invitation. And depending on how intensely you're practicing some other faith, you're taken up the notches. I thought maybe if you go to these places, you might find 5 devotees, 6 devotees, 7 devotees. I was amazed. In Dubai, they had 8 different places where they had programs. And each has like a strength of 65, 70. Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis. It's unbelievable how the mercy, this Bhagavad culture, the spirit and the essence of the scriptures is spreading far and wide. Pejawar Swami, the head of Udupi Mutt. Are you from Karnataka? So you know. There's a very sacred place called as Udupi in the southern part of India, and the head of that mutt, they are the followers of the great Madhvacharya, great Acharya, Madhvacharya. So he once said that Madhvacharya in his writings had predicted that a great soul would come in the age of Kali Yuga and spread the essence, the principles of Krishna Bhakti, even to places where it's not accessible. And by the mercy of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, who is blissfully established as the founder of the International Society or ISKCON, at the age of 65, he happened to take this trip from Calcutta to Boston. And then that's when ISKCON was established. He was roughly around 69 years old, 1965, so 69 years old. And at the age of 69, how many people do we find who are able to hear properly, see properly, walk properly, and have this willpower of changing the world? It's impossible. To change themselves, it's impossible at that age. And of course, it's a long story where he was instructed by his spiritual master to take this message of the Bhagavad Gita to all the countries possible, the Western world. And naturally, like all of us would think, he asked his spiritual master, Param Pujyapad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that why should I spread this essence of the Bhagavad Gita to the Western world? Why not just distribute this to the Indians? Why not just have discussions on the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Ramayana, Mahabharata in India? Why to take it to the Western world? His spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in 1920, roughly during that time, he told him that Indians are such, no offense again, but I'm just quoting what he said, are such that if you give them something very precious in their hand, they won't regard it. Because you think, oh, it's accessible easily. But the same thing, if somebody else has it, not just Indian, this is like human mentality, psychology. If you have something, you don't value it. But if somebody else has it, you immediately check with what you have. Oh, this guy has more than me, and then you want it. An example of that, see when you're sitting for prasad, when you're having food, and the items are being served. You always keep comparing with what the other guy is getting. It's a mentality you see in the other row. Oh, this kheer that's come up there, it's not come here. Oh, that guy has got halwa. There's no halwa here. So the comparing mentality continues. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told them, if you give directly in the hands of an Indian, he will not regard it. Because it's prevalent in the land of India. Bhagavad Gita has been spoken for such a long time. It was spoken in Kurukshetra in India. But if the Westerners start doing it, because it's foreign for them, Indians will realize that, well, this came from our land, but look how inspiring that people from all the countries around the globe are accepting. So it's not just meant for Indians, but it's meant for everyone, and they will take it. So he led a lifetime in preparation, and at the age of 69 or 70, he took this unbelievable journey from Calcutta to Boston. It took over 37 days for him over the sea. And he traveled, I mean, of course, he didn't have money for air trip on air. So he traveled through this cargo ship. It wasn't even a passenger ship. It was a goods ship, place where they carry metallic stuffs. And he had a small compartment there. And on board he had 2 heart attacks. Krishna was really testing him. And he had nobody with him. No doctors, no relatives, no money. It said he had 40 rupees, Indian rupees, which at that conversion was $7 American. How much is it now? Thank you to the conversion. Even at 65, you don't get $1. Anyway, 40 Indian rupees was $7 American then. And he had, that's all. No contacts in the US, no manpower. He didn't have anything. And the only reason he was coming there was to give it a shot, to give a try. Spread this message of the Bhagavad Gita. It took him 37 days. All that he had was the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is like the continuing study after the Bhagavad Gita. One of his dear friends told him, "Oh, I heard that you're going to the West." He said, "No. The Bhagavad Gita is going to the West. I am just accompanying the Bhagavad Gita." So he was not in the spirit that I am going and Bhagavad Gita is following. But Bhagavad Gita, this knowledge, is going to the Western world, and I'm simply an instrument in the hands of God. And he arrived in Boston, Commonwealth Pier, on the 18th of September 1965. And last year, September, we celebrated the 50th arrival ceremony of His Divine Grace. So he landed in 1965, and 1966, the first ever Hare Krishna temple started. 1 year. How many years have we been in the US?
50 years. Now 216 running, no? 50 years past.
Right. No, but
1960s.
we have been here for like 5 years, maybe 10 years.
Right.
We were all the time.
Very nice.
Of course.
So, for the years that we have spent in the US, if we just introspect, what have we done substantial for the society? Well, the reason why we came here was for ourselves. Just to collect money for ourselves so that we sustain. But for Srila Prabhupada, he didn't come to the US for money. He didn't come here for anything. He had nothing to lose, in fact. His business was down. He had to leave his family at this age of 70 years old. Didn't even know where he's going to get his food. Doesn't even know where he's going to stay. And then just by sincerity and by being dedicated to this message of the Bhagavad Gita, rest is history. The first year, he established the first ISKCON temple. 1967, the famous Puri Jagannath, the Rath Yatra, where lakhs and lakhs of people attend in Orissa, in India, was the spirit of Rath Yatra was got in San Francisco. 1967, we had the first ever international Rath Yatra, where the Supreme Lord Jagannath, Baldev and Subhadra were taken through the streets of San Francisco. And that year he renamed San Francisco as New Jagannath Puri. The old Jagannath Puri is in India. And it's New Jagannath Puri. So the point that I'm coming to is that Srila Prabhupada, when he started speaking on the Bhagavad Gita or lecturing on the Bhagavad Gita, there were so many editions of the Bhagavad Gita already prevalent. So many editions, and those who have attended the previous sessions, we spoke about it. There were so many different editions of the Bhagavad Gita, written by so many politicians, so many leaders, so many influential people. But most of them had some flaw or the other, in the sense that it was not properly translated, or it was losing some essential philosophical meaning. So therefore Srila Prabhupada, he translated it into English, and he called it Bhagavad Gita as it is. And this comes down through the works of his Guru, and his Guru has his works from his Guru, and his Guru has his works from his Guru. So they just come down this line of teacher and disciple. So therefore, whatever we would be discussing would be taken and would be based on the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So before we begin discussing the Bhagavad Gita, we express our gratitude to the personality who sacrificed his life, who in the next 12 years, that is from 1965 to 1977, traveled around the globe 11 to 12 times. Some places I read it was 14 times. I'm not sure of the exact count. But he traveled around the globe giving this message of the Bhagavad Gita to everyone. There were over 108 humongous temples built, over 300 different books written. In fact, he was once in Australia, and the health minister questioned him, "You're always teaching your followers to chant Hare Krishna. Why aren't you working for society?" And Srila Prabhupada answered, "How many books have you written on health?" And she said, "I'm writing my second book." And Srila Prabhupada smiled and he said, "I have written over 300 books on not just the health of the body, but the science of the soul, which is our true identity." Then the next question he said, "How many times have you traveled around the world lecturing on the science of happiness?" She said, "I'm on my first world tour now." And he said, "In 12 years I have circled the globe 14 times at the age of 70 and 80. And last question, how many people have you cured from the rehabilitation center?" And the health minister said, "We have over 100 people in the first batch." And Prabhupada smiled and he said, "I have over 15,000 hippies into happies." You know, they were all drug addicted and alcoholic and sex mongers, but they were all given this right path of how to find happiness on the teachings or based on the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So before we begin, we express our gratitude to His Divine Grace, and we express gratitude to all the great saints who have worked so hard to get this treasure of the Gita down and made it available to all of us. So as we begin, I would like to know from each one of you, why do you want to learn the Bhagavad Gita? What is the thing that you think you would seek from the Bhagavad Gita? Who wants to start? We can go from where? Where do you want to start? From here? Okay, go ahead. I mean, of course, I didn't give you an option. I just told you.
Since I was a kid, actually, I always wanted to read Bhagavad Gita, and I was a regular follower of ISKCON when I was in India. I used to go every week, and I don't know, somehow I even bought the books, the book you told about, like Bhagavad Gita as is, and I had started like a couple of times, but somehow I never could finish that book. So I thought this is a good opportunity.
Okay. So you've tried reading it before,
Yeah.
but it's not as interesting as Facebook.
No, it's not that.
Interesting how we can read the newspaper or the Facebook updates. You can just be glued to the posts on Facebook for hours together, and that will make no sense. You'll have a post like, "Got up and brushed my teeth, feeling refreshed." Just got onto my car. Wow. Couldn't find my shoes. Somebody help. We have all this, but that's more interesting, and then you'll comment on that. Wow. I think you should have found your shoes by now. It's already 2 hours. Trust me, I didn't steal them. Okay. So you tried reading the Bhagavad Gita, but you could never go through. Okay, fair enough.
I'm here by chance. It's one of the times when I do things spontaneously. It just happened yesterday. I just got a message that we have this program over here. I didn't know, the number was not with me, I didn't respond. It was not fully even conveyed what the program was.
Right.
Today I got a bit more detail that we are having a small Gita. I said, okay. I said I will try. I had my own prior activities. I said if it don't get done, I will be here. It is just a spontaneous thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have read Gita.
Okay.
But this is spontaneous. If you say why I am here, it is just one of the things which happens spontaneously sometimes.
Okay. Was there any specific reason what helped you make this decision? Okay, maybe I think I should go there.
I said I have two part of life. One is planned and sometimes I live it spontaneous. This was spontaneous.
I see. All right. Fair enough. How about you?
I think the little bit of knowledge that I have about the Gita, it's the only knowledge that can help me learn more about life and myself and everything in general. It's so dynamic that in any given situation you can open any given page and it will resonate with you in a matter of seconds.
You just said what Gandhi said. Whenever I'm troubled in life, I open up to a verse from the Gita and that gives me solace. Did you know that?
No. But yeah, I just love how the text interacts with you because you can personalize it to such a great extent, and it's the only piece of knowledge that is satisfying for the soul and for the person.
I see.
Everything else.
So the Bhagavad Gita is relevant to us and you think it speaks to you. Fair enough.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
I
Krishna.
think that we will never stop to learn.
Never stop.
Even if you read it and read it and read it again and again, you always see things or whatever Prabhupada that you didn't.
You might read it again, but you find newer things out of it.
Yeah. I should read it again.
Okay, alright. You've read it before, but you want to read it again. Fair enough. Yes.
What I hope to get out of studying the Bhagavad Gita is knowledge about God and spiritual direction and guidance.
I see. Okay, fair enough. And but what tells you that Bhagavad Gita is the right book, and what gives you hope that that's the calling that you're looking for?
Well, I've read it before, so just from my own readings of it, I'm convinced that it is.
Was that something that appealed to you when you read it?
Yeah. Well, before I read it, I just read it because you hear that it's this amazing text about knowledge of God.
Right.
So why not read it?
Right.
But I continue wanting to study it because I've read it before and I'm convinced the knowledge is valid and powerful spiritual knowledge.
Okay. It conveys spiritual knowledge which is applicable. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, for us it was Ashish who insisted us to come and at least attend the sessions.
Am I the only one clapping?
So we started attending. We came here in October and attended few sessions, and then we felt connected. I somehow
Connected with him or with me?
connected with
Connect with Gita.
Krishna.
and somehow I
Very good.
felt
We do the talking
enj-
and he gets the connection.
and I felt probably you can say internal peace and all. I mean, I would not say it's 100% there, but somehow when I chanted even on regular basis, I feel at peace for
Very
that
nice.
period of
Very
time.
nice. So you were chanting even after.
Yes.
Very nice. So you read the Bhagavad Gita to
No.
connect with
I
yourself.
mean, I think I started it. I would have read 2 or 3 pages of it and then.
Doesn't
But-
matter. Your sincerity is it.
But
There
I
are
but
people
I
who read 2 or 3 pages and they say, "Sab aata hai." I know everything. You know.
but I definitely continued chanting. So that is one thing. Yes. So then.
And my father reads it a lot, and he always used to tell me that read it regularly, but I never did that. So I thought that this is a good opportunity to at least to listen and know what it. I mean, he reads it, and I used to hear it. Not that I recall much now, but he used to read it. I mean, he's still reading it. So when I was there in India, I used to hear
Okay.
a lot from him. So it used to be like that's pretty good, and you will get a direction to the life and how you have to live.
So what do you basically expect from it?
To understand like where we are going wrong, what exactly the things we are not doing correctly, how we can improve ourselves, how we can be a better human, that's kind of things. I mean, I know how much we can follow, it all depends upon us, but still at least we'll know that that's right, this is wrong, so that kind of thing at least we'll
So we
understand.
start with knowledge, then we come back. Okay. Do you wanna? आपके श्रीमुख से
How did you get into all this?
आपके श्रीमुख से ज्ञान की गंगा को बहने दीजिए.
I don't know. As I kept reading Bhagavad Gita, which is like flipping of pages, there came a shlok where Arjun asked Krishna that Krishna, you tell me to do so and so things, and I do all these things, and then towards when I'm reaching the last breath of my current life, I figure out that all this what you said, it got me nowhere. Then I lost all my material pleasures. I wanted to live my life in a certain way and enjoy it in a certain way. But maybe I thought, let me regulate it a little bit so that Krishna, I'll be able to serve Krishna better. So what if I lose everything? Krishna said that, see, you have nothing to lose actually. And the fact that you are not losing anything is because the life that you see as part of body is just like you're wearing a cloth. You keep changing your clothes, your body changes, but your journey continues. So whatever you'll do in this life, you'll get the entire balance in the next life. And I saw proof of it because I had no intentions of reading Bhagavad Gita. In my house, Bhagavad Gita was there. Actually, my uncle got it. Today he's with us, right now over here. He got it. And I was just inquisitive to know that everybody says that Bhagavad Gita is the best message for life. Krishna has spoken it. Krishna being being God himself. Why not hear it at least once? What God wants us to know. So I got a proofs of these things. That like the fact that we are landing here at the on the platform of reading Gita or knowing Gita, hearing Gita, is that we have done something in our previous lives and this journey is continuing. So that was the thing. So it's just a continuation of journey.
Okay. And what do you expect out of this group discussion and this successive study week after week after week?
To know the message and to revive the messages that Krishna has spoken.
Sometimes
for
the messages might be hard to gulp. Are we all ready?
us.
Okay. Shriman, Param Pujyapad.
Okay, so yeah, no definitive answer because I did not read Bhagavad Gita before, not I intend to in future, but I like the company of good people here, a lot of positive energy coming here. I heard you before and I would like to hear you more, so that's the reason I come here.
Okay. Why did you say you don't intend to read it in the
I
future?
mean,
He's honest.
I don't intend to doesn't mean that I'm not going to.
But there was
It's just
never a
that-
plan.
Yeah, there is no plan right,
Right.
now. Yeah.
Right. Fair enough. Okay.
I think it's coming from the same. Like, thanks to Ashish only we came. Ashish also, same thing, he requested just attend. But I heard from my grandma, like, you should read. My grandma used to read daily and I used to sit with grandma. But never got a chance to read and So I thought
Sometimes when you
let's
see a
attend and
male, you say, "Oh, you remind me of my grandfather." This is the first time when you're going to see me, and you say, "You remind me of my grandfather." Okay.
So I thought let's attend and understand what it is.
Right. Okay. So is everybody seeking knowledge here? Any other reasons?
I would like to add something that I was passing. I was going through a hard time a little bit, where I had doubts about God and who is Him. And I remember I took Bhakti Shastri.
Oh wow.
And in Mexico, and there, after that, I didn't know what happened. Maybe, well, different things like meeting with devotees, have regular programs,
You felt at
study
peace.
scriptures, and then when the Bhakti Shastri finished, I didn't have any more doubts about
Very nice. So you already have finished. Both of you have finished Bhakti Shastri. Very nice.
Yeah, so I want to remember to feel.
Just like she said there, that by reading the Bhagavad Gita, the same point that adding on to that, she said that by reading the Bhagavad Gita, she's already undergone a systematic study of not just the Bhagavad Gita but 4 books. And she felt that adding on to points that both of you all added, she said that she liked and she felt inner peace. So very nice. So you got reminded when they said that, right? Very
Yeah,
nice.
and I want to share with people that know really what Prabhupada says.
Right. Not just gain, but also give this fruit to others. Very nice. Doctor.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Who's our doctor?
So, when I heard that we are starting the Bhagavad Gita discussion, I immediately okay, first chapter, do I have to really go? That's my first thought. So I'm listening to this lecture by one of the devotees. The lecture is about why we have to go to temple every Sunday. Why can't we just listen in YouTube? What she told is why we go and watch cricket match, live. Why we can't watch on the TV? Because it's all the vibration and it's all we can meet Vaishnavas. The very reason I came here is to meet all the good people, as he mentioned, and Vaishnava Association.
Very nice.
And regarding Bhagavad Gita, it's...
You know everything.
No. What I say is I am too insignificant even to utter the word Bhagavad Gita. That's my understanding about Bhagavad Gita.
Why would you say that you're insignificant? What great in Bhagavad Gita do you see and you seek inspiration?
He brought this wonderful thought in my mind about my grandmother.
No, he said about his grandmother.
No. So because
he got the thought.
Because he told about his grandmother, I remind about my grandmother. Okay, she is now 84 years old.
Okay.
And she had Alzheimer's for last 10 years. She forgot everything about her husband's name, children's names, everything. Whenever I spoke with her about on the phone, I say, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Then she completes the whole thing. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Paddo Danudra, Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhutihi, Dhruvanitir Matir Mama. Then I will ask, what is my name?
For those who are figuring, that's the last verse of the Bible.
Bhagavad Gita. So then I ask her, what is your son's name? I don't know. What is your grandson's name? I don't know. What is your home? Which town you live? I don't know. So I think, somebody has to read Bhagavad Gita like that. Then it is significant.
So that the temporary things may be forgotten, but the eternal truth remains always with you.
So the one thing I understood with that is, she forgot everything, but Krishna did not forget her.
Yeah, very nice.
That's the main thing.
She forgot, but Krishna
did not forget her. She, still now, when you start one sloka, she completes the sloka.
Very nice. So since we have many more people and we have less time, I would like to seek your permission and conclude. The reason I had this session is just to know what you are expecting. And on those lines I put sure. So today was like, just to start up, you just heat the stove a bit, and then in subsequent weeks we get started. One of the great acharyas in the past, he writes in Gita Mahatmya, or the glorification of the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Sarva Upanishado Gavo, Dogda Gopal Nandana, Partho Vatsa, Sudir Bhokta, Dukdam Gitamritam Mahat. What does this mean? He says, Sarvo Upanishada Gava. All the Upanishads, there are 108 principal Upanishads. All the Upanishads are like cows. Gau or Gava means the plural form of cows. Sarva Upanishada Gava. Dogda Gopala Nandana. Who's the, if Bhagavad Gita is like, so all the Upanishads are like cows, but there has to be somebody who's going to milk the cows. Dogda Gopala Nandana. Krishna, who is known as Gopal or Nandanandan, he's milking all the 108 Upanishads and having it in a container. That container, which contains the essence of all the Upanishads, is the Bhagavad Gita. Right? Sarva Upanishada Gava, Dogda Gopalanandana, Partho Vatsa. However, this special milk must first go to the calf. So Vatsa means calf. Partha is Arjuna. So Krishna is milking the 108 Upanishads and giving it to the calf, who's Arjuna. He's speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Partho Vatsa Sudir Bhokta. But Arjuna is distributing this milk with everyone. And who's that everyone? All of us. Dugdam Gitamritam Mahat. That milk, Dugdam, is Gita Amrita, the nectar of Gita, Bhagavad Gita. So the essence of all the 108 Upanishads, which we cannot read, we don't have time. And even if we have time, we don't have mood. And even if we have time and mood, we don't have the patience to complete. And even if we have time, mood and patience, we don't have the intelligence to understand. And even if they have the intelligence to grasp, we don't retain. And even if we retain, we are not able to reproduce. That's the greatness of all of us. So to make things easier, Krishna has milked the 108 cows of the Upanishads and has given the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is the first person who's drinking, and he's sharing this nectar with all of us. Interestingly, we always find that for some discussions like this, very less people turn up. But when you're going to have a discussion on politics or sports, you have countless people coming in. What is the reason? Why do you think less people come in for such discussions while more people come in for other discussions? What do you think is the reason?
Well, it depends. You have Christian mega churches that get huge crowds every Sunday.
Okay.
So
Okay. Now, if you have a bad speaker like me, you will only have such small crowd. But the interesting analogy is that when you go to a fish market, especially in India, how many people turn up there? It's total chaos. Because it's stinking fish, so there are people for that. But in a jeweler's store, how many people are there? Very few. Because to enter, you need to be qualified. So the jewels of Bhagavad Gita are like diamonds, while we are in a transcendental divine diamond store. And only those, as Ashish rightly said, only those who are continuing from our past and have had some connection with Krishna in our past lives get this opportunity. And you grasp it. So who would like to discuss or start up this discussion on why the Bhagavad Gita was spoken? Just feel free to express your thoughts.
Because Arjuna, at the war, like Arjuna said, I can't fight with my brothers and like my relatives. So Krishna was trying to convince him, like, it's dharma. You are doing your dharma.
Okay.
So,
So Arjuna didn't want to fight, but Krishna was speaking the Bhagavad Gita so that Arjuna should fight. Why would God give you an advice to fight? Sometimes people ask this question. That's the reason I'm asking you. Don't mind. Bhagavad Gita talks about ahimsa, and here is Krishna telling Arjuna fight. What type of dharma is this? Did you get the question? Why are we worshipping?
There is no question. He was identifying himself with the body, and Krishna just advised him to de-identify with the body. That's the Bhagavad Gita. Yes, de-identify with the body.
De-identify.
Yeah, you are not the body. De-identify yourself from your body. Everything else will follow automatically. You need not to read any shastras and all these things. According to Ramana Maharshi, you are not the body.
Even Krishna said that.
Yes, so that is the message.
Okay. So seeing
People get confused in so long Bhagavad Gita. They get confused. What Krishna want to say, what we should adopt.
Interestingly, it's
But
not that.
Ramana is very clear about it. He says, you are not the body. Why you are talking about all these things? There is no need. Be silent. Silent from your mind.
Okay.
Your mind must be silent.
Okay.
And mind is nothing. Mind is a bundle of thought.
All right.
It is no.
So now we'll come to what Krishna says. Is that okay?
Yes, same.
Okay. So the interesting point is Krishna makes it crystal clear in Bhagavad Gita. The only thing is that the word jugglery that is found in the market, the interpreters, that is a total nonsense. So many people interpreting in different ways. But Krishna's essence is very simple. The answer why Krishna tells Arjuna to fight is that the message is not to fight, but the message is to stand for the truth. Now I'll tell you a long-standing history, if you all are ready to hear. It's a long story as to why this whole battle was arranged and why Krishna was telling Arjuna to fight. Are you ready to discuss this?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. There were 8 Vasus. Yeah? Vasus are a specific breed found in the heavenly kingdom. These 8 Vasus, they happened to go to Vashishta Muni's ashram. And Vashishta Muni had this wonderful, wish-fulfilling Kamadhenu cow. So one of the Ashta Vasu's wife said, I want that cow. Can we steal that cow? They said, it's impossible. If you steal that, then you're going to find the fury of Vashishta. Then it so happened that 7 of them just assisted and 1 went on and stole. And that Vasu was cursed to have a long life on earth. That Vasu by the name Prabhas, he reincarnated as Bhishma. That's why Bhishma had a long life in the Mahabharata. He was born to Ganga and Shantanu. And as the story continues, you will find that Bhishma continues to have 2 brothers, step-brothers, born from the second wife of Shantanu by the name Satyavati. Interestingly, both these brothers don't have children. The first one dies before his marriage, and the second one dies childless. And Bhishma, due to some reasons, as we know in the Mahabharata, he had taken this vrat, or this promise, or this vow, that he would never marry. Because of which, initially his name was Devavrata. But he took this Bhishma, or amazing vrat, or this amazing oath that he would never leave his celibacy behind. He would follow the principles of brahmacharya. And this was impossible for a Kshatriya. Kshatriyas were known to have many, many wives. And here was Bhishma promising to be celibate. Of course, that's a long story why he did that. So if you see, to continue this dynasty of the Kurus, there was nobody. Bhishma was there, but he can't get married, so he cannot procreate. 2 brothers, Vichitravirya and Chitrangada, both were dead. One was dead before marriage, the other was dead childless. So who's going to continue? The wives of Vichitravirya were alive. Ambika and Ambalika. and there was one more personality by the name Amba. So we'll consider all three. Yes? There were 3 women, and the only person who could impregnate them was Vyasadeva. Who's Vyasadeva?
The sage who wrote the Vedic literature.
His name is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas. Alright? Krishna because he's an avatar of Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Dvaipayana because he was born on a dweep or an island. And Vyasa in Sanskrit means to split. So he split the whole Vedic literature depending on different sections. Therefore even now in Gujaratis we find Vyasa as surname. Even now it comes down, Vyas, Mahesh Vyas. It comes down through Vyasdev. So Vyasdev agreed to impregnate. Alright? When he entered the room of Ambika, before he entered, in fact, Ambika was told that a great personality will come. You have to unite with him through prayers, and then you will find that the family dynasty continues. So Ambika, in her thought, she was thinking, oh, a very handsome looking, charismatic king is going to come, who's going to come off and jump from his horse, and he would be a very powerful fighter. And here enters Vyasdev with hair all over his body, and he just come out of water, so his dhoti was all wet. And he enters in this terrifying look of a sage. And Ambika looks at Vyas, and she's not ready to accept that she's supposed to unite with this person. She closes her eyes. And she says, this is impossible. So Vyasdev doesn't unite with her. He just looks at her womb, and through the power potency, he is able to impregnate her. Doesn't have to be a sexual contact like it's found in this age. But he said, because you closed your eyes when I entered, that's like a blasphemy to me. I curse you. This child who would be born to you would also be blind. And that child grew up to be Dhritarashtra. Then Ambalika, he enters her chambers, and she's also thinking, oh, this person is going to be so handsome, he's going to be tall, and he's going to be well built, and she has her own criteria. And Vyasdev enters, and she just goes pale in fear. No way, no, stay away. No, you're not going to come close. Again, he blessed her with a child, but he said, because you went pale in fear, and your body turned pale seeing me, I curse you. The child who would be born would be good, no doubt, would be virtuous, but he would be pale in complexion. Pandra. That personality was called as Pandu. Now the first person is blind, the second person is pale. Isn't there a normal person who's ordinary and who's good, who's fit and fine? So then they sent a maidservant. And she was so humble. She served Vyasadeva. She touched his feet. She said, please bless me. I'm not qualified like the others. I just pray, I just want to serve you. Vyasadeva touched her head and impregnated her and said, because you're so humble and you have no ill feelings in your heart, I bless you. Although the child who's going to be born from your womb would be the son of a maidservant, he will be the most intelligent. Who's he? Vidura. So therefore Vidura is always considered to be the most intelligent, although he is born from the womb of a maidservant, so to speak. Now the problem. What is the problem? Vidura cannot be the king because he is born from a so-called Shudra's womb, who's considered to be a low-born lady. So that's not possible. Now the two possibilities of the next kings, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. According to rules, the eldest son, the older brother, he becomes the king. So who should become the king? Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra becomes the king. He agrees to become the king. But then his only problem was, he said, how can I be the king when I'm blind? It's not possible. So then who becomes the king? Pandu. Pandu agrees to become the king.
Yeah, he's coughing.
And according to rules of Shastra, if your father is the king, you become the next king after his time. And then after your time, your son becomes the king. And after his time, his son becomes the king. Now the whole controversy was, Dhritarashtra is supposed to be the king. Which means, after his time, who's going to become king? Duryodhan. Duryodhan. He was called Duryodhan because, according to the commentators of the Mahabharata, it was understood that he was a foolish fighter. Yuddha means fighting. Yodhan means fighter. And Duryodhan, bad fighter, because he was foolish. He worked on the basis of bad politics and diplomacy. But Yudhishthir Maharaj was so virtuous, he never called him Duryodhan. He used to call him Suyodhan. Oh, I cannot call you Duryodhan. You're Suyodhan. So, ideally speaking, Duryodhan should continue. But now, because his father was blind and the kingdom was given to Pandu, the next to follow would become the Pandavas, headed by Yudhishthir, the 5 sons. Now the whole problem was, should Duryodhan be the king? Should Yudhishthir Maharaj be the king? Should Duryodhan be the king because his father was supposed to be the king? But then should Yudhishthir be the king because Dhritarashtra was blind, so the next king was Pandu. So therefore Pandava should be the king. You see the whole point? This was the confusion. But it was unanimously decided by greats like Dronacharya, Bhishma, and all the really intellectual, spiritually uplifted, spiritually elevated, and even materially speaking, very knowledgeable personalities. That out of the two, Yudhishthir Maharaj was more capable and eligible to sit on the king's throne because he was virtuous. Duryodhan wasn't because he never followed the scriptures. Bhagavad Gita states, Yaha shastram vidimutsurjya vartate kamakarataha nasa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na paramgatim. What does this mean? Yaha shastra vidim utsrujya. Shastras give you a vidhi of everything. There are rules set up for everything. Yaha shastra vidim utsrujya. If you don't follow and you deviate, vartate kamakarata. The first sign is that you will become lusty. What type of lust? Not just sexual lust, but lusty for everything. Lusty for name, lusty for fame. Because you don't follow the right path, you won't get the right destination. You reach somewhere else. Instead of being virtuous, you end up being lusty. Instead of being self-controlled and compassionate, you end up being greedy and angry. Instead of having tolerance and forgiveness, you end up being envious and jealous. You take a wrong path and you reach a wrong destination. Simple. If you take a train from Mumbai to Calcutta, you cannot expect to reach Bhubaneswar. Or you cannot expect to reach Chennai. Because you're taking on a wrong train. You're taking a wrong path, so you reach a wrong destination. So, Yaha Shastra Vidim Utsrujya. Those who don't follow the rules and the path suggested in the scriptures, Vartate Kamakarata. The first thing is you're filled with desires, which make you lusty. The repercussions are, Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti. You won't be successful even in the things that you're doing. Doesn't matter whatever it is. And the striking example is in this world, if you see, lust and greed can spoil the greatest relationships. Brothers can drag each other to court. Isn't it? One lusty man can lose all his reputation, doesn't matter how good a sports person he was. We see politics, we see sports, we see news, that anger, lust and greed can just destroy us. So it's described, if you follow the path of the scriptures, you're away from these 3 evils. And if you don't, Nasa siddhim avapnoti. You will not be successful in what you're doing. Na sukham. You won't be happy. Na paramgatim. And forget spiritual upliftment. So the scriptures are like a torchlight. And all the greats knew that Yudhishthir Maharaj followed it, and therefore he should be the king. Duryodhan didn't agree to this. There were constant attempts to make peace. Krishna went as the peacemaker, begging Duryodhan, please give them, if not the whole kingdom, give them a portion of the kingdom. Come on, just give them 5 cities. Impossible. Go. I'm not gonna give them anything. Krishna said, give them 5 towns. I'm not gonna give them. Give them 5 villages. Let them manage 1 village each. Impossible. Give them 1 village that they can collectively manage. He said, impossible. Then, after repeated requests, Duryodhan said, I won't give the Pandavas even that piece of land or that portion of the land which would be covered by the tip of the needle. If you keep a needle onto the ground, the portion that it covers, even that portion of the land, I won't give the Pandavas. And Krishna really saw that this was an alarming point where those who were demoniac were taking over, those who were good. And that's when Krishna announced war, not encouraging Arjuna to fight and create bloodshed, but encouraging the Pandavas to fight for their right. And this is legitimate because this was sanctioned by the Supreme Lord himself. Example, if you have a soldier, alright, if you have a general, army general, and he's fighting a war, and he's representing his country, and he shoots down his opponent, many, 20, 30, using his AK-47, the country awards him, gives him medals. But the same soldier, if he goes onto the street with his gun and starts shooting citizens, what happens? He's put behind bars. What is the difference? He's shooting then and here. But what is the difference between the two?
Selfish motive.
In the first, he's representing the country. And in the second, he's just acting on the wants of his mind. So therefore, fighting on your own, as many groups do, fighting and killing people down on your own mental understanding is wrong. But fighting, when sanctioned by the Supreme Lord, is legitimate. Yes? Because it's sanctioned by him. And this was for the right cause. So that's the answer to the question. Why did Krishna encourage? The reason I gave you a long explanation is so that this is like one of the most commonly asked questions to the readers of the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, you're reading the Bhagavad Gita, it's supposed to be ahimsa, non-violence. Then why are you reading a literature which talks about violence? So the right understanding is, it's not talking about violence against anyone and everyone. It's talking about violence in the battlefield of our heart with negative emotions within ourselves. The fight is not outside. Please note, Krishna is not telling you to fight outside and kill people outside. But Krishna is encouraging us to fight the battle within. Where there's no physical bloodshed, but within our heart, within our mind, humility is fighting against pride. Greed is fighting against charity. Self-control is fighting against lust. Things like that. So the battlefield is not outside, but it's our consciousness. The Pandavas are the good qualities, and the Kauravas are the negative energy. And Krishna as Paramatma is the chariot who's guiding us. Make sense? So it's not violence outside, but it's the war within. Next question. Why did Krishna speak the whole thing on a battlefield? Aren't spiritual discussions supposed to be in the cave? From one yogi to another? Somebody is sitting in a one-piece loin cloth and is meditating with ashes all over his body, and he's sitting on a tiger skin or a deer skin, and that's where spiritual topics are discussed with pin-drop silence. And here is Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita to a soldier, a kshatriya. Not a place of silence, but there's constant noise there in the middle of a battlefield. Why would you discuss all that there? You won't even study your normal books on a battlefield. Why would Krishna speak the Bhagavad Gita on a battlefield? What do you think?
How many days it might have taken to explain the whole Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna? How many days Krishna may have taken?
Once we finish, we will take that.
You may answer.
Yeah, once we finish, we will get to that. So, what do you think? Sorry?
Life is battle.
Life is a play, yeah, play. It's not a battle. Everything is predetermined.
That
And
was
bad
his answer.
qualities, see, bad qualities, good qualities, these all are beyond yourself.
Okay.
It doesn't affect yourself.
Okay. No, that was his answer, not a public answer. That is what he feels, and he's free to say that.
No, he may say.
So life is a battle. Okay.
How to lead a life, it will give a way to.
So we are like Arjuna, we are fighting our own battlefields, right? And the messages are applicable to us. Okay. Fair enough. Any other versions to it? Any other angle of vision?
I've heard some people say that he spoke on the battlefield so more people could hear it.
Okay.
But I don't know how much. I mean, I don't know if that. Yeah.
Yes. Krishna has done this thing. He has even killed his Yadava. While going back, he killed whole family. That is also there. What was the fault with them?
Okay.
I guess like he probably spoke it on the battlefield because that's when we need the most guidance. Like just before we perform the action. You know, when we're sitting on a cave and we're retrospecting, things are so much easier said and done.
Because the mind is calm.
Exactly.
But
like,
the most mistakes are when your mind goes like this.
when you're in the situation, when you're like faced with the difficulty,
Right.
that's when we actually need that advice or that knowledge to come to us. And I don't know, maybe that's the significance.
Okay. Is mind bad? That's the next question. Do we agree we all have a mind?
Yeah.
Due to mind, we are here.
Well, the way I will put it and the way I have read it, I don't know how it goes with ISKCON or anything. It's a psychology, and then Kurukshetra is your mind, emotions in the most troubled times, and that's where the battle is actually happening. So as she
Was
said,
on the lines of what she said.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. What she just said, it is actually when you have to make a call, when you are in a split decision.
Okay.
And you have a split decision, and Gita is giving you an extreme example of where you have to fight with your kin with whom you have close emotions.
Okay.
That's just a metaphor. That emotions you are having, and still you have to do certain actions, and your mind is in split.
Okay.
What is the way how you can take a sane decision, understand what is the clause? That's where all the concept of starting right from yourself, whether it's your own self, it's a divine will. Krishna goes chapter by chapter by first giving examples, then Arjuna. It's an intellectual discussion. It's trying to convince us all, depending on how we can get convinced in a troubled, unbalanced situation, how we can calm down and take a right action rather than remain miserable. So the battle is a metaphor.
Okay.
The whole situation, it can't be done in peaceful. It's when you actually need it. That's why Gita is referred to be used for all the people in the real life.
Very nice. That's the point I was looking for. Fantastic. The point that he's making is that we all have our battlefields, and this Kurukshetra represents the battlefield, the struggle of our life. And it's not meant for a specific sect of people, because since we all have our own struggle, we all have our Kurukshetra, the Bhagavad Gita speaks to one another. In the last 5 to 10 minutes before we wrap up, a few points. Now you'll have to bear with me. We have to, there will be no discussion now. We'll just have a quick review or a few facts and figures before we get started, or get started for the next week and wrap up for today. Bhagavad Gita, the word Bhagavat comes from the word Bhagavan, which means God, and Gita means the song. So the literal translation of the word Bhagavad Gita is the song of God, and God is Krishna here. Not just here, everywhere. Krishna is God. Okay? This whole discussion comes in the Bhishma Parva of the Mahabharata. Mahabharata has different sections, and Bhagavad Gita is like a middle portion of the Mahabharata. Chapters 25 to 42 of the Bhishma Parva and the Mahabharata is actually the Bhagavad Gita. The Mahabharata unfolds in such a way that till chapter 24 is the point where the story is unfolding to this point where everybody is on the battlefield. And chapter 25 onwards to chapter 42 of the Bhishma Parva are the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So there are 700 verses spoken in this whole discussion. Very interesting to know, because the Vedic scriptures have over 400,000 verses. But the essence of all of that has to be known and is relevant to us, is condensed down to 700 verses. Imagine having 10 fruits and you sitting and eating each one of them. Very difficult. Instead, you take all of them, put it into your blender, and then you have just the essence of everything, right, in one glass. So Krishna is taking the essence from all these different fruit-like scriptures and giving you the essence in the form of Bhagavad Gita. 700 verses are split in such a way that over 500 verses are spoken by Krishna, over 80 verses are spoken by Arjuna, or 680. The exact figures are something like 584 by Krishna and 84 by Arjuna, and then the rest by others, by Sanjaya, and one by Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra has just one verse in the whole, and that's the first verse. He's like, I'll say my shloka, then you'll continue. He asks the question and it just flows. So, 18 chapters, 700 verses. Interesting question. The battle went on for 18 days. Alright? But the narration of the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna had with Arjuna was in 40 straight minutes. Krishna spoke in Sanskrit, Arjuna understood in Sanskrit, and it was in 40 to 48 straight minutes in the calculation. Sometimes people think it went on for months. Well, understand, this was all spoken on the battlefield. So you don't have a time to suspend everything. Now for the next 15 days, we're just going to have Bhagavad Gita. It's like the fast discussion between Krishna and Arjuna, which made perfect sense. And as we will be reading from next week, the way I've planned is that we'll go verse after verse, but not one verse a week, because that will take 700 weeks, and we don't have so much of time. We'll be taking chunks, like first verse 1 to 11 today, or 1 to 15, depending on how it flows and how intense or dilute the topic of discussion is. So in this way, depending on different topics, we'll cover chapters after chapters after chapters. The first chapter should roughly take around 2 weeks, which means two meetings. Chapter 2 would take longer because it has 72 verses. So by then, as you reach chapter 2, the interest level will be higher, because now you're expecting, well, this is the question that Arjuna is asking, let me see what Krishna says to this. It's interesting, very interesting. That's the answer. 18 days for the battle and 40 to 48 minutes for the discussion. These 18 chapters are divided into 3 portions. Krishna speaks about different stages and different practices of yoga. What does the word yoga mean? Connection. The word yoga comes from the Sanskrit root yuja, yuja, which means to connect. Connect what to what? Connect us to God. That's the actual meaning of yoga. But with passing time, yoga, as soon as you think of yoga, you find 50 people in their yoga pants and the yoga mat sitting and breathing or moving their hands and legs. That's a stage of Ashtanga Yoga. That's not yoga all in all. It has different stages. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Dharana, Pratyahar, and then finally Samadhi, which is meditation, absorption. But in the present time, because we don't have patience and we don't have time, we just skip different stages and we just go to one where we can have fat loss and better flexibility of the body. While the actual principle of yoga is not just on the body, but connecting the soul to God. And by doing all this, you can keep the body fit, but the connection with God is not there, because God is not even there in the discussion. Right? So different yogic practices are there. You have Dhyana Yoga, you have Jnana Yoga, you have Karma Yoga, you have Ashtanga Yoga, and finally you have Bhakti Yoga. These different yogic processes are considered to be or could be understood like this, that you have different stages, right? They are like steps. You start off with one yogic practice and that leads you to the other, then it leads you to the other, then it leads to the other, and finally the essence being Bhakti Yoga, where you connect with God through love. In Dhyana Yoga, you connect with God through remembrance, or rather through meditation, dhyan, to try to focus our senses. In Jnana Yoga, you try to reach God through knowledge. In Karma Yoga, you try to reach God through your action. But all of them are not perfect and complete. But Bhakti Yoga is the process where you connect with God, yoga, through Bhakti, which means love from the heart. From our heart, you express love through your senses to God and you're connected. And this is considered to be the topmost. The good news is, you don't have to go through all of them to reach Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga can be achieved directly, and that has all the other practices. I'll give you an example. You fall in love with a girl in this world. As soon as you start liking somebody, you naturally think about that girl. So you have Dhyana Yoga. You want to know more about that girl, so you have Jnana Yoga. You want to offer her something so that you please her, that is Karma Yoga. And all of this is happening because you have love for her, that is Bhakti Yoga. So if you naturally have love for God, all of this are subsets. So in the Bhagavad Gita, you will have different sections, but interestingly, the essence of all of that is to love God, is to know more about God in a selfless manner. To love Krishna, not expecting something in return. Going to the temple, I'm giving this so that I get this. No, that's not bhakti. That's business. Bhakti is defined as being free from all considerations. Whether good happens to you, whether bad happens to you, whether the situations are favorable, unfavorable, whether what's happening is desirous or non-desirous, but you still do it because your love is way beyond all the considerations. Like if the mother is told, your child is going to be #1 terrorist in the future. If the mother is told that her child is going to be a #1 terrorist, you think her love for the child is going to reduce at that point? No. Because her love for the child is way beyond all the knowledge of this world, all the other activities of this world. It's just priceless. So pure love for God should be like that. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said, the nature of pure love can be seen in this world only in that relation that the mother has for her infant. Because it's unconditional. She's not expecting anything. It's unmotivated. She doesn't need pays and perks to keep her service on. It's uninterrupted. At the night when the child is crying and has passed urine and stool and is just all over the place, the mother is ready to give up her sleep. I think he literally heard me. So along with Gyan, you're having Vigyan also. Practical demonstration. So the mother gives up her sleep, which is so dear to her, and just go and attend to the child because of her love. So this is the nature of pure love. When a living entity can love God, can love Krishna unconditionally, in an unmotivated, uninterrupted fashion, selfless, totally, that is pure love. And Bhagavad Gita is coming to the point of that essence. Krishna builds it up. He speaks about things in this world, then he slowly transcends it, and then finally he comes to this point that true happiness can be found not in being selfish, but being in selfless, completely selfless, to God. And by being selflessly connected to God through love, you can be selfless to everyone. If we try to be selfless individually, you will fail. Because if you love one person, naturally you are not loving somebody else to that degree. And then in the traditional Indian household, there'll be a poor husband who's stuck between his wife and his mother. Does he love her more? Does he love her more? And his love naturally is equal for both, and which is just unbelievable. Because he loves his wife, he loves his mother. But the nature generally in this world is that if you love one person, naturally your love for the other is less. And it's not equal. But if you love the center, you love every portion of that center. Isn't it? If you love your father, naturally every portion of the father in the form of brothers and sisters that you have, you love them. How do you love your brother and your father? It's brothers and sisters. It's because of your central love to your parents. Because you love your father, you love your father's spectacles. Because you love your father, you love your father's shoes. Because you love your father, you love your father's car. Individually, you don't like them. But you love them because they're connected to the object of your love. And because everything comes from Krishna, and He's the center of everything, and we all belong to God, the easiest way to love everyone is to love Krishna. When you offer water to the roots of the tree, every leaf of the tree gets watered. But individually, if you try watering, the tree will die. Do we see this? Similarly, if you feed food to the stomach, which we would in a few moments, we are all eagerly waiting, including myself. If you offer food to the stomach, all the senses are rejuvenated. But if you offer them individually, the body dies. Imagine offering some puris to your ears, some khichdi to your hands, some halwa to your feet. Doesn't work. But all of them to the stomach, the body is completely energized. So similarly, if you direct all your love to the center from whom everything sprouts, you can naturally love and serve everyone. There's a saying, there's no question of universal brotherhood without universal fatherhood. Without establishing God in the center and loving Him and being grateful for all that He's doing for us. Not just going and asking, but offering to Him. Offering our love, offering our gratitude in humility. That is bhakti. And Krishna explains that doesn't matter whatever situation of life you are in, if you have this mood of being selfless, humble, forgiving, tolerant, and non-envious, then we transcend all problems. Problems are never a source of suffering for us, but we just transcend them. You don't run away from them, but you run into them and solve them. So in this way, this is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. As before you start reading a book, it's always good to know where the author is taking you. And the good news is, he's teaching us not to fight and create sectarian divisions in society, but he's teaching us how to be loving, how to be kind, and how to be humble and tolerant in the true sense, not just acting humble. Sometimes we are humble at some situations when it is favorable for us. But as soon as something is not favorable, we start shouting and we are angry. How is this not possible? But Krishna is teaching us, if we have the flower of bhakti in our heart, then the fragrance of humility and tolerance is everywhere in the courtyard of our heart. And such a person is naturally happy. Such a person is naturally forgiving. Such a person is naturally filled with good qualities. And that, if that is what our essence is, if that is what we are finding in life, then this is the right path. But if we aim to be something else, then Bhagavad Gita is not meant for us. And I'm pretty sure all of us are marching our way on that path to reach that goal of being loving and being kind. So therefore Bhagavad Gita is the right approach, and this is the necessary background. When the field is fertile, now you throw in the seeds and they sprout. So now the fields of our heart are fertile with this information.